Hello, I'm Linda Seith from The Layered Onion. Thank you for joining us. We will be listening to our amazing creators talk about their art and mental health. 48 million artists all over the world share this lived experience. The Layered Onion was formed to create a supportive community, allowing the creators to focus on their art, bringing their work from the shadows to receive the recognition and opportunities they deserve. Each podcast will feature an artist who talks about their creations and mental wellness. Art is healing. We hope these discussions will inspire you to appreciate the stories behind the creations and, more importantly, inspire your inner creator. Together, we can tackle the stigma surrounding mental health. Well, hello, Lauren. I'm very, very excited to talk to you today. How are you?
I'm good, and it's really great to see you again. Thank you for having me.
So I think you had a really big week last week, and
Yes.
I want you to talk a bit about it, but you're at the tail end of your master's in fine arts. Is that correct?
That is correct. I have about a month and a week and some change left, and then I'm done.
All right. So last week you had your big, is it called a thesis, or what is your show called?
Yeah, so within fine arts, the master's in fine arts is considered the terminal degree. And so similar to a PhD, we have a thesis, and that thesis takes the form of an exhibition. So there's a gallery on campus that we have complete control over. We put up the artwork that we've been working on. We have to orally defend it to our board, and then we get the green light to pass.
All right. Well, maybe you could, first of all, did you get the green light?
I got the green light. I get to graduate.
So exciting. So exciting. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the exhibition. And in a minute, we'll share some of the photos from the exhibition, but maybe talk about the thought process when you were working and developing both your theme and thinking about it.
So when I first started graduate school, the first point of research that I started with was my childhood ADHD diagnosis. It was never really a diagnosis that I identified with, and that's where I chose to start. And it took me on this really wonderfully beautiful journey over the past 3 years of discovering more who I am, how I kind of view myself as a neurodivergent person and a victim of the 90s, more correct diagnoses that they just, weren't aware of within the 90s. And so that accumulated into a final exhibition to where I was really exploring the ideas of past, present, and future self, and how our memories influence who we become, how our present influences who we become, and then kind of our way of manifesting who we want to be.
That's really interesting. You probably knew this, that last week was Neurodivergent Awareness Week.
So I didn't plan that when I signed up for my thesis show, because I signed up for my dates last year. I found out last week, and I just considered it a really beautiful gift from the universe. And
one of the theme for last week was about really tackling stereotypes for neurodivergence. And if you were talking about past, present, and future, there's quite a bit of synergy there.
Yes.
So maybe talk a little bit about past and how you thought about past, how you thought about present, and how you perceive future.
Yes. So, and this is the part where I get into a little bit of art philosophy. So I'm really interested in how our memories affect us. We have this idea that our memories are true, but they really aren't. We had these experiences, our brains hold on to that information, and over time, those memories change. We forget portions of them, but those memories become so incredibly important to us. And with photography, I was really interested in how photography relates to time. The only moment that a photograph is connected to time is that moment that you click the shutter, and then everything else is left up to us to interpret. So we look at photographs and we start to create narratives in our head and kind of determine where that photograph fit. And so I used some photographs to represent memory, and they kind of went through a distressing process. I used charcoal and wax to kind of dirty them up. And then across the gallery were photographs that were unaltered. So these photographs were kind of facing each other. And so past and future were consistently forced to look at each other.
And so then how did you do the present part?
Yeah, so I'm also, I'm an interdisciplinary artist, so I also weave. I have a loom. And the history of weaving and the mythology of weaving is really fascinating. We see a lot of different cultures globally using weaving as a metaphor for creation. You know, spells are woven, you know, we weave lies. And so a lot of times the idea of this motion is what creates our entire universe. And so I created woven structures that hung from the ceiling in the middle of the gallery. And so when the viewer steps into the gallery, they're immediately confronted with that kind of like, oh no moment of not really knowing where to step or where to go. And as they moved through the space, they consistently had to be brought back to their body, purely so that they didn't trip, you know, or accidentally run into something.
So, okay, so I'm having this image that the weaving was between the photographs that were representing the past, that had been covered with charcoal and wax, and the photographs that were clear, that were the future. And so you had to be present to experience the other two. Oh, that's really a lovely, lovely idea, because it's really difficult to be present. And to force, you know, how did you think of that? To think about this idea of forcing people to be present?
So when I started exploring these woven structures, I eventually, as I scaled up in size, the woven structures started to drape onto the floor. And I really was interested in that moment of tension. And just because, you know, as humans, we're like, oh, don't touch the art, don't let it touch the floor. And as they grew larger, they started to expand onto the floor. And then I had a lot of people talking about how, like, it made them anxious, you know, that they were like, I'm having to think about how I walk around the piece. Can I step on the piece? Can I touch the piece? And there was a little sense of like joy in making someone feel anxious, especially, and I think a lot of neurodivergent people feel this, of when you step into a new space, that anxiety of trying to figure out how you're going to navigate through that space. And so those weavings gave me the opportunity to make other people experience that if it's something that they don't already experience.
So were you able to capture some of people's thoughts as they were going through that?
Yeah. So we do have a critique process to where my peers come in and they give me their general thoughts and feedback, as well as my committee gives me their general thoughts and feedback. And it was overwhelmingly received successfully. They immediately, just from their experience with my work, understood that they needed to think about where they were stepping, how they were having this hesitation to be within this space, and kind of forcing them to move through the space. And when you see the pictures, that'll make a bit more sense. But these weavings also acted as obstructions. So sometimes you had to like move around the weaving to be able to see 100%. And a lot of people really enjoyed that push and pull of trying to kind of figure out how to move through the gallery space.
So we'll go to the pictures here in a second, but I guess one question I had is, did you reveal in your biography or in any way, shape, or form your neurodivergence, or was that an after effect that they had to kind of figure out?
So within my art bio, I do state that I'm neurodivergent. It's the source of a majority of my research. It's something that I think I'll never not be interested in. The human brain is just, vast and does really amazing, interesting things. So it is stated in my bio. A lot of my peers do know that. I'm also very fortunate that within the art world, everyone else is about as weird as I am. So it's a very shared experience. And then during the oral defense, I did say my, condensed artist statement, which explains that it's the purpose of the exhibition was for me to explore my identity as a neurodivergent person.
So how long is the display on being exhibited?
So we have a lot of graduate students this year. So the display period was quite short. It was only up for 3.5 days.
Oh,
yeah. So it's a lot of stress packed into a very short period of time. But yeah, we have the defense, and then there's an opening to where we serve food and everybody comes out and celebrates with you.
okay.
So yeah.
Well, I'm so glad then you captured it on film so we can see it. So why don't you share? Go ahead and share your screen so we can see it.
Let's see.
Boy, that's a tremendous amount of work for 3.5 days.
Oh. It is. It really is. And let's see. Can you see that okay?
Yes, I can. I can.
So the title of the actual exhibition was Oraculum, which is the Latin word for oracle.
Okay.
Which was just kind of my play on me being the oracle in this situation and kind of making the decisions of what past and present and future were. Let's see.
Okay.
And then I'll just go through these really briefly.
Okay.
These are just the digital files of the photographs.
Were you rolling down a hill on that one?
Yeah, I was rolling around in the grass.
When I was a kid, we had this place, we rolled down the hill and there were snakes. So we would always sometimes roll on a snake. That made me think of that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then these were the past. These represented the memories.
Can you describe this for people if, those that'll be just listening? Because this is really, really such a difference from the digital files.
Yeah. So,
oh my goodness.
These sculptures are a combination of photography and some fiber work. So there's 3 sculptures total, and in each sculpture is 4 photographs. Each section of the sculpture ends up being about 60 inches by 60 inches. They're torn, crumpled, and then sewn together. And then I also use charcoal and wax to distort the image.
They're absolutely breathtaking.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just really I bet if you were up close, you were able to really spend some time trying to dissect what was going on, huh?
Yes. Yeah. Really, the pictures don't do them justice.
Super cool. Okay, well, we will certainly show this so people can see it. So this is past.
Yes, these are the memories.
Okay.
And then, so this is the door of the gallery. So before you step into the gallery, this is what you would see. And, so you're really immediately confronted with making the decision of how you step into the gallery. And it was really interesting to me because when I was in the gallery, a lot of times people would poke their head into the door, but they wouldn't actually step into the space. Like they would really lean into the door to try to see everything that was in the gallery, but they would never really like break that precipice.
So folks that are listening, it almost, as I'm looking through the door, it almost looks like a person.
Yes.
And it looks like they're hooded and very ethereal and just a very interesting feel. So I can see why people might be hesitant. They're like, whoa, there's somebody there. And so there's more than one of these sculptures.
Yes, there's a total of 4.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yes, let's see. So then here's, the title vinyl, and then another woven structure, and just kind of an example of that obstruction. And then here's one side of the gallery. And so you can see an additional woven structure along with those photographs on the back wall, which were 40 by 40, which is the largest I've ever printed. And was quite a challenge.
Was it hard to find a place that did the quality justice?
So I was able to print them on campus. And so it was really up to me, which is a little bit more stressful, and really just figuring out how to store them and how to carry them so that they didn't get, ruined or anything like that.
So I can really see how the woven structures are along the floor in different spots. And so it's not a straight line any place. You definitely would have to go around things.
Yes. Yeah. And then
I can see where this would have really been just something for people, that they walk in and they're like, okay, here I'm struck with these 3 incredible sculptures that, like you said, they I can see where they're really about your memories, that some are clouded, some are darkened, right? And some, I can see the wax makes you feel like they're not quite clear. And then you have these this is really amazing, Lauren.
Thank you.
Really amazing. Yeah. And then you go across to these clear, bright, super bright. So maybe you could talk about, for the sculptures, the weavings, how did you pick the colors?
So
they're very neutral for anybody listening.
So originally when I started working with this material, those were the only colors that were available. They do now make other colors, brighter colors. And it was a very long conversation with myself about why that just didn't feel right. And I haven't unpacked it all the way, but within my general wardrobe, I don't wear a lot of bright clothing. A lot of it is black and greens. And so I really think I'm just uncomfortable with putting color in them. And so they very much stay within that kind of neutral palette.
Yeah, I think it would have been maybe, if there had been color as you moved across from the past and the sculptures over to the future, which has all this color, and for those that are listening, they are not crisp picture. I don't know, I can't say crisp, but they have your own signature element where there are multiple images, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like there's this super crisp image. It still allows you to look at the future and you can alter it, right? But it looks like it's making you, at least it's making me think of a future where you can have fun.
Yes.
You can be yourself, but you still have the opportunity to mold and grow it the way you wish.
Yes.
Yeah. With color.
Yes. Yeah. Those are a lot more colorful. There's some green in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Although you're wearing white, which I think was a very interesting choice.
Yes. Yeah. Normally, I wear, like I said, I wear a lot of black, and my chair, she was like, Lauren, you've got to wear a different dress in these photos. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
I think white was perfect because it's sort of this idea of purity.
Yeah.
And the idea that your future's not cast. It's what we make of it, right?
Yes.
And I think with mental health and neurodivergence, often, especially, and I think you kind of get into that as you walk in, and your tension, anxiety goes up when you're in a new and different situation. This idea that doesn't have to shape your future is just a lovely progression.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. This is amazing. Did you have any other photos you wanted to share?
No, that was all of them. That kind of encompasses the entire gallery.
Well, I think this is amazing. And maybe tell me from this, what did you learn that you will take into the future work that you do?
So a lot of the work that I was making in graduate school was me seeking a resolution for my identity. And by the end of it, I've accepted that I don't have to assign a resolution. That was probably my biggest takeaway, that I can just allow myself to alter and change and grow and leave things behind and pick up more things as I move into the future. I also am really excited to explore more fiber works and then also more photography. I was able to learn so much about the art making process, and there's just still so much to learn. And I think grad school proved to me that for me, I will never not be learning new things about art, which is just a really exciting idea to me.
So maybe talk a little bit about how art has, because I can hear you say that through the process, you came to sort of an acceptance of who you are.
See.
Oh yeah, we probably should take it back so it's just you.
Let me stop sharing real quick. Okay, can you see me?
Yes, I can see you. So it seems to me that this gave you a lot of opportunity to explore who you were, who you are, who you're going to be.
Yeah.
And that art was a huge part of the healing process.
Yes.
And so maybe for those who are still learning how to use art in a way to help them bridge from where they're at from a mental health or neurodivergence, what are ways that you think that art was the most helpful?
So I think, the English or any language as humans is flawed. We're able to communicate, but even just us two have different backgrounds. We have different life experiences. And so language, while it's our number one way to communicate with other humans, it's also so incredibly flawed. We misunderstand each other. We bring our own ideas to the table, and it can create issues within communication. And art is a visual language. And especially with the work I make, it's very emotionally driven, and I hope to bring an emotional reaction to the people who see it. And I think it's a more clear-cut way to communicate how you're feeling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to think I think, we've talked before about how you don't use new cameras. You use antiques or children's cameras to do your work. And that has such symbolism of in some ways the past, but explain to me how that bridges to the future using these childhood cameras and tools.
Yeah. So specifically, all of the photos in this show were shot with the Holga camera, and it's a camera that has really no settings on it. You just click the shutter and hope for the best. And so when I am out photographing, not having to stop and think technically allows me to work more quickly. It allows me to work more loosely and then also more authentically. Especially in really vulnerable moments. I think as humans, we'll be like, oh, I should take a photo of this. And then stopping to set up the camera and set the shutter speed and the aperture, you then kind of have to question, do I still want to take a photo of this, right? There's some time that's passed between, where you had that feeling. And with the Holga, I just click the shutter. So the amount of time for me to second guess myself or anything like that is just very much removed.
So how do you get the sort of double exposure look, or some of the almost looks like it was altered digitally? Mm-hmm. How do you get to that from, a Holga?
Yeah. So a lot of that is the Holga doing the heavy lifting. They're known for that kind of dreamy, ethereal look. The lens isn't really the best. And then additionally, so I work in very low light conditions, which really pushes and stresses my film. From like a physical standpoint, I really push what the film and camera is capable of doing. And so I think that really pushes that kind of dreamy, blurry imagery. So
well, that's really amazing then that you can see the color if it's low light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very interesting. So, it makes me want to try to do photography in a different way because, now we're so dependent on our phones, the digital phone. And when I hear you say, does it always turn out, or should have I taken a picture of that? That does cross my mind when I look at things. I'm like, why did I take a picture of that?
Yeah.
Because it's too easy.
Yes. Yeah. I also think photography allows us to look at ourselves in a different way. Like we know it's us, but then it's also this other person at the same time. And so I think especially if you're struggling to accept yourself or accept yourself more, love yourself more, I think photography and portraiture has a wonderful way of allowing you to do that.
So maybe we can kind of pick on that thread a little bit, because I'm a person who never wants to have myself in the picture.
Yeah. Oh, me too, surprisingly. I don't like it whenever people take my picture.
But I do notice that in these cases, you never have a clear shot of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. It's always in a very dreamy fashion or seeing through something to you, etc. What is it that I see all these people who can take selfies, take a million of them, and then those of us, and maybe it's those of us who have, challenges that just can't quite, look. But how did you even bridge the gap to get, so you actually do have yourself on film? I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah. All of the figures within my work are me, exclusively. I did very long time ago use a model, and then that model was no longer accessible to me. And at the same time, I had a very big shift in my life happen, and I just so desperately needed to work through it. And I ended up using myself just because that's what was available. And that really was the pivot, and being able to see myself. And like in those particular photos, I very distinctly remember the emotions I was experiencing, and being able to see them now in this like kind of third party setting allowed me to remove them from myself, but then also reflect on them in a much more, I think, like safe and comfortable environment.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of, I don't know, I think that's kind of, really intuitive that that you had to use these photos of yourself to get through whatever hard spot you were at. And maybe they'll even carry you longer when you keep looking back at them.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, what's next for Lauren? You're going to be graduated, and I'm hoping, is this exhibition going to go up somewhere else? Because it deserves to.
Yeah. So within the art world, I can apply for solo exhibitions other places. And I have had other solo exhibitions in the past. I just had one in Houston recently. Right now, I'm kind of in a hold pattern for solo exhibitions just because I don't know if I will be moving this year. And if I have a solo exhibition in Texas and then I end up moving to Colorado, that, throws some issues into that, logistical process. But for right now, so within higher education, the hiring process is quite long. I have applied for full-time positions. I'm waiting to hopefully hear back for an interview. And if I get that interview, I would start in the fall.
Okay.
I am very thankfully teaching a darkroom class this summer, which I am ecstatic and very excited to teach. And so hopefully I will have a job and be teaching this fall.
Well, cool. Well, very cool. I am so excited for you. I think the exhibition, even what I've seen from your work, from some of the work that I saw, would have been in maybe late, 2022.
Yeah.
To now, what a change.
Yeah.
A lot of that was more black and white.
Yes. Yeah.
And this switch to both the color, but I am just mesmerized by what you did to the photos of the past. I'm totally mesmerized. It's really like a sculpture.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And fiber, what kind of fiber did you use?
So in the sculptures, it's embroidery thread.
Okay.
In person, you can see it more. And then the woven structures, that uses a cotton yarn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I'm just so thrilled for you. I think it's very exciting. The exhibition was astounding. And I can't wait for people will show some shots on social media so they can see. And we're very excited, and we can't wait to see what you do next. So
thank you. Yeah.
Any advice you would give someone else who's, going through learning about themselves as a neurodivergent person and learning about their art? What advice would you give?
Yeah. I would say chase what brings you joy. I think a lot of people get very hung up on this idea of perfection, and that it's okay to make art that serves yourself. It doesn't have to serve the greater world. You don't have to change the world in a single day, and it's okay to serve yourself. And I would just say, keep doing it. I think a lot of artists stop. Something happens and they stop making, and it would just be, don't ever stop making.
Yeah. Well, those are wise words, because it's easy sometimes to get overwhelmed, but with a day-to-day. And really, when art is a healing mechanism, it's a shame when we put it to the side.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it probably has the power, like you experienced, to bring us through a dark time.
Yes.
And bring us to a better spot. So, well, we look forward to hearing where you're going and what you're doing next. So super exciting. And thank you for joining and sharing your exhibition with us.
Of course, thank you for having me, like always.
Yes, I'm very happy. Yeah, very happy for you. So stay tuned, everyone. We'll see what Lauren does next. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. It is an honor to talk with these amazing creators. You can see and read the artist's work in the Shallot, our journal of mental health, art, and literature, or on our website, thelayeredonion.com. Thank you.
A little more